Hello, welcome to the Cash Games Locked podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. Of course, he's Christopher Ruckus at Space Jam 23 DFS. And we're giving you the breakdown of cash games on FanDuel and DraftKings tonight. Obviously, we've got a huge slate of action as we always do on Tuesday. So, there's going to be a lot of guys that are being considered for cash games at every price level, really. There's quite a few arms on the mound that are either in good spots, much better than yesterday, either in good spots or elite arms, low totals, things like that. So tons and tons of options. And let's go ahead and start off with FanDuel here. And we'll run down each of our lineups like we always do. Chris will give his, I'll give mine. We'll try to keep them a little bit different to give you some more options. And then once we have a little bit of time left, we'll give you some alternatives if you don't go the route that we're suggesting. So why don't you go ahead and start off with your FanDuel cash games picture here.
Who'd you go, James Shields or Annabelle Sanchez?
I went James Shields.
Perfect. And I just went Annabelle Sanchez as I click Annabelle Sanchez in. So Annabelle Sanchez, James Fields, same price. I'll let him give you the spiel on James Shields. But Annabelle Sanchez, he's a high strikeout pitcher in a pretty good matchup tonight at home against the Brewers. Brewers are strikeout prone. Their lineup is a lot scarier than a lot of people, they think it's a lot scarier than it actually might be. Last night we saw, they can go home runs, but they're not putting together strings of hits. They're not knocking. I just don't love their matchup tonight, specifically in a park such as Detroit. I'm just not a big fan of the Tigers or the Brewers tonight in Detroit. I think Annabelle's in a great spot. He's in a really good pitcher environment. It's going to be pretty cold, sub 60 degrees, not a ton of humidity. It's clear skies, which is something that we'll talk about. There is some weather concerns tonight. But I am ranking James Shields 1 because he is in Petco, significantly better than Comerica Park. But Annabelle Sanchez is a pretty close number 2 for me. And then the one pitcher I'm gonna talk about really quick too. If you are pivoting off of those two, I know Justin has James Shields. You're pivoting probably to Francisco Liriano. One difference with Liriano and this game is he's also got some wind blowing out, and it's a little bit more of a hitter's condition in Pittsburgh tonight than in the latter. So my option, Annabelle Sanchez.
All right, and yeah, just to further your Annabelle Sanchez call, Brewers, like you said, name recognition, but that's it. They're 24th in the league in WOBA against righties at 294. They're striking out the 5th most at 22.2%. And going back to James Shields now, the Cubs have the 2nd highest strikeout rate against righties on the season, and it's at 25.4%. Team ISO 139 is about league average. They're 17th in Team WOBA. Everything average. I mean, it's another one of those ones where you're scared of some of the big bats. And yes, Shields has had some concerns with the long ball this year, but he also has a 30.9% strikeout rate among the league leaders. I believe only Danny Salazar has a higher one this year. And, you factor in a team that strikes out a ton against a guy that's striking out a ton of batters. He hasn't had trouble with long ball throughout his career, so I think this is more of an anomaly than anything else. And I think he'll be fine, and that price tag at $8,800 on FanDuel just has him locked into my lineups, and I absolutely love that, his upside. And like you said, in Petco Park at a 6.5 run total, and he's got a decent pitcher on the other side as well, in Jason Hamill, but minus 128 favorite, tiny total at home. A lot of things that you got to like in this one. All right, yeah, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say you made a really good point about that 6.5 run total. That does mean a lot. Everyone's trying to predict the win, so let's talk about this. Matt Harvey pitched an absolute gem last night, only to lose the win on FanDuel in 4 points because of a blown save.
Yep.
So sometimes, by targeting, I'm just going to take the guy that's minus 180 in an 8.5, 9-point total, 9-run total. That's not always the best play. You can't dictate if they're going to get the win or not. You have to pick your matchup based on who has a high floor, who's got a good matchup, decent ceiling, and the win considered a bonus. I'll tell you last night, we had the 3rd worst pitcher in our cash games last night, Chris Sale, and Justin and I both swept the board, nearly swept the board, maybe missed a 3-man here or there. Don't just force in, these high favorite guys. I mean, right now I'm just pulling up the Vegas odds. I think the highest favorite actually tonight isn't it Annabelle Sanchez at minus 184?
It's between he and Liriano. Liriano's 180, so I'm seeing right about those two are both big favorites.
And I mean, when you look at it, Liriano, he's a 7.5 run total, and I believe the Detroit game's 8.5, if not going up to 9. Oh, it's at 8.
Yeah.
So I mean, both 1.5 runs doesn't sound like a lot, but when we're talking, that's also taken into, I call it, throwback to the NBA game flow. A 6.5 run total versus an 8.5 run total is a much different game, quote unquote, flow than the other one. So, those are your pitchers tonight, and I think not a question at all.
Yeah, completely agree there. And I mean, like you said, the win, yes, it's important, but it's also a very hard thing to predict outside of Vegas odds. Obviously, you look at bullpens, things like that. But if you get a pitcher that strikes out 10, 11 batters, which Francisco Liriano and James Shields are both more than capable of. In fact, I believe both of them have multiple games. Let's see. Shields has a 12 strikeout game, a 9 strikeout, 2 9 strikeout games, an 8, 2 7s. I mean, you get that type of upside, and I mean, you can get yourself. He had 17 in that game against Houston, 12 strikeouts. He had 17 points and didn't get the win. So enormous upside with these guys, even if they don't get the win, which sometimes, like you said, is out of their control. You got 0 earned runs over 8 innings like Matt Harvey did, don't get the win. He was by far the best, most productive pitcher last night, but he didn't get the win, and it wasn't his fault. So, yeah, that's an important thing to keep in consideration here.
Moving on to catcher, I'm going to take a hitter who's been hitting the ball well. I would argue he's been one of the most consistent / successful catchers over the past month. He is also the most expensive on the board. And he's in a hitter's park in Houston, and that's going to be Stephen Vogt, 3.8K. Catcher's a little bit, it's a weird spot tonight. You've got some really strange catchers. You don't know who's going to be catching in cores. Obviously, they're all in play. One player is going to be in play tonight is Stephen Vogt, who's just in a better position than Buster Posey at home, obviously. And so Stephen Vogt, 3.8K, locked in.
Yeah, I love Stephen Vogt. In this lineup, I couldn't afford him. We'll get to that in a minute. I went with a cheap option, AJ Pierzynski at 2,400, assuming that he's in the lineup batting around cleanup. Sometimes he's batted 6th. He's a low-risk, medium-reward type of guy. Obviously, you're not expecting him to hit a bunch of home runs. He's got 3 on the season, but batting near the heart of that order tonight against Erasmo Ramirez, who, as we know, just not a very good pitcher. I like the near minimum salary there with AJ Pierzynski.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good call. I was looking at Pierzynski as well.
All right, next up, first base. I'll go first and throw it over to you. I've got Albert Pujols at $2,900. Aaron Sanchez on the other side. We know that the Angels are not hitting right-handed pitching. In fact, they're the worst in the league right now somehow. But Pujols starting to get it going. He's got multi-hit games in each of his last 2, a double in one, a homer in the other. And at $2,900, he just opens up a lot of salary for you so you can get some other big bats in there. And, if this offense gets going against the guy who is walking 16.9% of all batters he's facing, then there could be some big innings in store, and you got to think that Albert Pujols will be a big part of it.
Albert Pujols should be a big part of it, except I took a different 2.9K player. Love Pujols. Also like David Big Papi Ortiz tonight at home. Nothing, he has struggled this season, but, I mean, historically, his ISO's off the charts. I think he got a dong in his last game. He played at Safeco. Yep, at Seattle, 2 hits, 1 home run, RBI run, walk. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come for him in my, in the cash game lineup tonight. But 2.9K, I think, is not what David Ortiz's talent represents. Same with Albert Pujols. I mean, when they're priced the same as Chris Carter, Logan Morrison, Darren Ruff, those guys in the same conversation, they're just elite players compared to them. So David Ortiz for my first baseman. No, I think Boston's one of the trickiest, sneakiest stacks tonight. So I do like Boston bats in general.
Yeah, good call. And Giovanni Gallardo with nice bad splits in Ortiz's favor, actually. 344 WOBA allowed to lefties, 4 homers already on the season to southpaws. So you got to like that. Moving over to second base, I'm taking advantage of, once again, like you were talking about, a really good hitter who's too cheap. This is a guy who hasn't been particularly great this year, but has got it going at times. He's not showing any power, though, which is concerning. But you like the matchup against Miguel Gonzalez, who gives up among the league leaders in home runs allowed over the past few years. Robinson Cano at $3,000 tonight. He doesn't need to go yard to pay this off, but he gets the big-time park upgrade to Camden Yards, and I'm taking advantage of the cheap price tag and give myself a nice floor there in cash games.
Yeah, so I actually have Robinson Cano at second base also. So we'll talk about two pivots, three pivots, two pivots. Pivot one, Danny Espinosa, 3K. Justin had a pretty cool stat earlier about how he's hitting the ball, just hitting the ball significantly better this year. Every metric states that. And then pivot number two, Chase Utley. I mentioned him in the podcast. He's in Coors. He's 3K. Need I say more?
Yep.
He's in Coors. He's 3K. Need I say more? I mean, those are your pivots at second base. Cano's obviously the most talented, and I love Cano tonight. I think he makes for a great play.
Absolutely. Let's move on to third base, where you're either paying up for one guy or you're paying down for his teammate, in my opinion, in cash games. And I'm going up to Josh Donaldson in 3.6K against the lefty and Hector Santiago, who is an okay lefty. He's been pitching fairly well this season, but I'm taking Josh Donaldson at home against the lefty whenever and wherever I can, especially at this price tag.
So I think it continues to say all day, every day. Is that how it goes? All day, Josh Donaldson. I mean, he had a monster game yesterday. Not monster, I should say. 3 hits, but I mean, he sprays the ball. He's had positive in the last 10. I mean, the guy just gets on base. He gets you high floor, pretty solid ceiling because he can go yard for you. And he's facing a lefty tonight. I mean, good luck, Mr. Santiago, against these Toronto bats. 3.6K is a steal. If you're looking to pivot upwards, Nolan Arenado, he's in Coors against the Phillies. Not much else to say. We know the Coors effect. He might have let some people down last night until the last at bat, but he's another one who he has a floor of about a fantasy point, where you know he's going to get you a fantasy point, which in cash games, that means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll mention one more pivot here, a little bit cheaper. Adrian Beltre against Wade Miley tonight. You know how he is against lefties. And you're looking at his logs. I mean, he's got 5 multi-hit games in his last 8, including 3 home runs. So finally starting to find his form. His price creeping up, but still more than a fair price at $3,200 for him in that matchup. So I don't mind if you pivot that way either.
No, that's a great call. I actually didn't even think of that.
All right, next up, shortstop. I'm going with the hot hand here, and his name is Brandon Crawford.
Oh, B-Craw. I've been on him since last Thursday.
And he has been producing.
Welcome to the party. Welcome to the Brandon Crawford party. Everyone's invited for a home run, 4 RBIs, a couple runs scored. Welcome to the block party of Brandon Crawford.
Yeah, he is doing it all right now. You look at his recent game logs, 2 hits, 3 hits, 2 hits, 0 for 4. We'll let him have a pass on 1. Before that, 2 hits. Like you said, he's scoring a lot of runs.
Who was that 0 for 4 against, though?
Who? What pitcher?
Who'd they play that game?
That was the Reds. I think it was Johnny Cueto.
I think it was Johnny Cueto, too. I'm almost 100% sure it was Johnny Cueto. And then he just came back and said, you know what? I'm going to give you a 4.5 to your face, and I'm going to smack a home run and give you 6 ribbies for almost 15. And you know what? 2 hits, 3 runs for 7.5. That's what Brandon Crawford, 3.1K, is a great price tag. I went to the Min Sal guy of the night, Zachary Walters, 2.2K. Disclaimer, check to see if he's in the lineup. The dude's got power. I want big bat in my outfield, so I hate shortstop. I mean, I'm not paying 4.5K for a shortstop that's got a tight quad, may or may not want to be traded, and hasn't hit a double since last year.
Yep.
So I'm not playing up. That gentleman's name is Troy Tulowitzki. He's just not playing up to his level. I mean, think about it. Put yourself in the situation. There's trade rumors going around. You want to go. You don't want to go. Your quad is tight. You're slumping. I mean, I'm not paying that price tag for him until he does something. His ownership is so low night in and night out because of his non-success. He doesn't burn you. If this guy was last year form and you're fading him on a Coors night, good luck. He's going to get you 6, 8 fantasy points. He's not, though. Good for us because guess what? It's one of the hardest things to fit a shortstop at 4.5K and then start looking everywhere else. So God bless you to Mr. Justin. But yeah, you can't play Tulo tonight, so I punted with Zachary Walters. That disclaimer may or may not be in the lineup.
All right, let's move on here to the outfield. I think this first guy, teammate of Troy Tulowitzki's, I think we might both have him. Carlos Gonzalez at 3.2K. Obviously at home, he's actually hitting the ball. Not great, but starting to get it going recently. A couple multi-hit games in his last few. 2 homers in his last 5. Now gets Aaron Harang, fly ball pitcher at home. Sign me up for that at 3.2.
Take me home tonight. Carlos Gonzalez, baby. Love Cargo tonight. 3.2K. Play the song for him. Take him home tonight. If I had a dawn call of the night, it's got to be Carlos Gonzalez. His price tag is tremendous. I'm torn on his ownership. I don't know if he's going to be high owned because he hasn't had a great season. And if people are looking at his game logs, he's only had 2 really big outings. I don't know what his... I'm torn on his ownership. Luckily for me, I don't care about his ownership tonight. I care about getting home runs, and hopefully Carlos Gonzalez takes me home tonight to all first-place games and cash game lineups.
Absolutely, and speaking of home runs, I'm going with a guy who hits a ton of them. He has 11 of them on the season in my next spot, and against a guy who has bad reverse splits throughout his career, the Hell Dog, Jeremy Hellickson, going against Giancarlo Stanton. Speaking of good luck, Jeremy Hellickson, not in a very good spot here tonight against Mr. Giancarlo at 4.6K. You're going to want at least one of these big bats in the outfield in your lineup, and I'm going with Giancarlo Stanton. He's got as much power as anyone in the league, and Jeremy Hellickson is just a bad pitcher at this point. he's, in my opinion, pretty fortunate that he's still in the major leagues right now.
So all I thought about right now is when you said good luck, all I could think was Rounders and the gentleman saying, speaking for Jeremy Hellickson, good luck. You want home run? You want home run? And twist his little Oreo cookie.
Yep.
So Giancarlo Stanton, amazing, amazing, amazing. I went elsewhere. I went to the guy who has the fastest exit velocity. I read in ESPN magazine a couple days ago. Crushing the ball. Goes from Safeco to Camden. Nelson Cruz. 4.5K. In Camden Yards against Miguel Gonzalez. Sign me up.
Yep. Best home run hitter in the game against one of the worst home run pitchers. Great spot for him. Moving on to my last pick here. I love Detroit leadoff bats against bad pitchers. And I don't think that Jimmy Nelson's a terrible pitcher, but I think he's slightly above average. And I do think that the Tigers will get to him. I'm going Anthony Goes. We know he's got upside. We know he's got a nice floor. He gets on, he steals bases. He obviously scores runs when they get it going. So at 3.2K, I'm taking a safety of a guy who's got some monster bats behind him tonight.
He's my favorite play every night. I absolutely love Goes. He is like one of my favorite. That's the way it
goes.
That's the way it goes, don't you know? If I could run back and take all my players' lineups for percentage of money played on them, Goes has to be one of my top owned guys because he bats lead off for this, this explosive offense. Gets on base, can hit a double, steal a base. Last night I think did he single, stole second, and then stole third, or was that 2 nights ago?
I think it was wild pitch that got him to third, but then he scored afterward.
It was a wild, and then he scored.
He did steal second.
He did steal second. Yeah, so I like him. The other surprising bat that I'm going to play tonight, going back to Coors. I feel like I need to start a song. Going back to Coors. I'll work on that, guys, for you.
Get someone else to sing it, though. You can write it.
I'll work on it for next week and see what we can do. Odubel Herrera. You saw him last night. Dude hits the ball as hard as he possibly can every single at-bat. He's in Coors. We saw last night he struggled up until, I think it was his last at-bat. He ripped a double down the line, got to third on a pass, a bad throw, 2 ribbies, a run scored, 4.25 in Coors. Yes, please, thank you. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yep, he's got that Carlos Gomez type of swing there where he just swings for the fences and not a lot of power, but you got to love that ballpark for a guy with speed.
Love it. Yeah, 100%, not a question.
All right, let's go ahead and move on here to DraftKings, where there's going to be a lot of similar names, of course, but we'll go ahead and give you the rundown here. I'll give you both my pitchers, then throw yours back at me. James Shields, of course. I love him tonight. He's my favorite pitcher on the slate. And then number 2, I'm going with your boy, Anibal Sanchez. Shields is 9,700. Sanchez 8,100. I think fair prices for both guys. Shields a little bit pricier than I'd like, but I love the upside. So I'm rolling with those two guys tonight.
Yeah, no, I think that's a safe play. I did play my man Anibal Sanchez, but I also played somebody else. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a pretty good strikeout pitcher. He gets a couple. I think he had 10 a couple games ago, 9 against the Cubbies. And that's going to be Francisco Liriano at home, 9.3K. His whip this year, 1.01, 50K. He's averaging 21.2 fantasy points on DK. Not a lot of, there's a lot of pitchers tonight. I welcome anybody to go ahead, pay down, take a risk, take Willie Nelson pitching tonight. I can't believe Justin finally caught that. I thought it was going to be a bad joke that everyone thought I didn't know Jimmy Nelson was actually pitching. So yeah, take Jimmy Nelson. Go ahead, go look at all these other take Sonny Gray for 10.1K. Take all these risks, or go ahead and take a pitcher to show consistency, Mr. Lariano. I'm going to steal Justin's thunder and go right to catcher. Yasmani Grandal, 2.9K. Sorry, that's FanDuel price. 4K on DK. Tim Hudson, he's a ground ball pitcher. Obviously, this is San Francisco's not good hitters park at all. But essentially, this is putting a catcher in a good position with a team behind him. So I like him tonight. He fit perfectly in my lineup. Catcher is the last position I'm filling tonight, and I'm essentially saying, how much do I have left? And then going back if I want to switch out, pivot around. But as of right now, Yasmani Grandal, who let's say he's been hitting the ball pretty well lately.
Yeah, and Tim Hudson's obviously on the tail end of his career. He's given up 8 home runs already this year, so certainly some upside despite it being a pitcher's park. And I'm going with the guy you went with on FanDuel because I love him. Stephen Vogt, $4,100 against Roberto Hernandez, a.k.a. Fausto Carmona, a.k.a. a guy that I want to be targeting tonight in Minute Maid Park. So Stephen Vogt for me, that's an easy one. I'll use that transition to go over to another guy that I love playing, especially in cash games at first base, Mr. Joey Votto at $4,300. He gets Rodano Ventura today, and as we know, Ventura's been wild. His walk rate's down from last year, but he's already allowed 6 home runs. We know when he's bad, he's really bad. I mean, you look at his logs. Ventura, even a couple times when he's got off to decent starts, I mean, he had a horrible start against the Indians, and he hasn't had more than 10.6 fantasy points in any of his last 3 starts, Cleveland, Detroit, and Texas. So this is a guy not pitching well right now, and I think the Reds get to him tonight in Kauffman Park.
So you got Joey Votto, a.k.a. Zoolander. Have you seen his DraftKings photo? I mean, yeah. strike a pose, man.
Blue steel.
Strike a pose. Yeah, I like the Votto call. He's in a good spot. I went ahead. I took somebody that you took on FanDuel. He is 4.1K. He has 2 home runs in his last 4 games. 7 for the season. Started off a little bit slow. A lot of disappointment. A lot of people talking about what's going on with Albert Pujols. And what's going on with Albert Pujols is he's in a hitter's park against Aaron Sanchez at 4.1K. Great price tag, and is my catcher or is my first baseman tonight.
Yeah, still got one of the prettiest swings in all of baseball. So love him or hate him, the guy can still match the ball.
And I mean, he also got a great beard trim in his DK photo. I mean,
he got himself a beard edge up.
Beard edge up. I mean, if not for anything else, they say fear the beard. I say play the beard tonight for Albert Pujols. And for, a little side note, if you're playing NBA, go James Harden, man. Show him you're the real MVP. Just a shout out, Mr. James Harden. I know you're going to watch our podcast. It's what you do on your road trips. So James Harden for 3. Fear the beard, the real MVP.
Love it, love it. Moving on to second, the guy that always seems to go underappreciated. I'm going with a cheap Neil Walker tonight at $3,700 against Ricky Nolasco. Obviously, he'll be hitting from the left side of the plate tonight. And Nolasco's just not a very good pitcher. He hasn't allowed a home run yet on the season, but hasn't been particularly great against lefties or righties. Walking more than 10% of batters. A lot of factors in Pittsburgh's favor tonight to have a couple big innings against Mr. Nolasco. So I'm taking the discount here going Neil Walker.
Neil Walker. Wow, I feel like I'm listening to my echo, but I love Neil. But somebody else tonight, I think someone's going yard. Do you want home run or do you want stolen base? So second baseman, you already know, leading the league in hits, Mr. D. Gordon. 4.8K. I'm paying up for him. The guy is going to get on base tonight, and he is going to be stealing a base tonight. He is going to. He's just set up perfectly to have one of those nights where he gets 3 hits, 2 stolen bases, 2 runs scored, 3 runs. You know what I mean? He's just. I feel like that night's coming up for him, and tonight is the night. I don't really love second base. I mean, especially on DK, I feel like their pricing is super strange. I actually, I don't mind Altuve at 4.4K. Sonny Gray is a little bit scary. Chase Utley at 4.4K just doesn't give me that upside, even in cores. Yeah. He's batting 143 on the season. Even in cores, give me D. Gordon, speed, stolen base, run opportunity, and Giancarlo Stanton behind him.
Yeah, and D. Gordon batting 406 in the season, 447 at home. The guy is just an absolute beast right now. He's one of the best cash game plays in any position most nights. I love him. Third base should be pretty simple. Josh Donaldson. I'll say it one more time, Josh Donaldson at third base.
Yeah, so I'll give you the pivot. Obviously, Josh Donaldson, but same price. He's in a better stadium. Fight with me if you want to say Coors is in a better stadium tonight. So it's going to come down to raw situation or park. Do you want Nolan Arenado at 4.7K, or do you want Josh Donaldson at 4.7K? Yes, that's right. Josh Donaldson is going yard tonight, but Nolan Arenado's in a sweet, sweet spot. 4.7K, flip a coin. That coin, unlike in the earlier podcast, is going to be two-sided. And Nolan Arenado's on one, Josh Donaldson is on the other. I think they're both in great spots. One of the craziest price tags I've ever seen in my entire life is that 95% of DFS players, casual, come on here and they say, who is Maikel Franco? It sounds like somebody I made up in when I was in middle school for my MLB team that has 99 overall and everything. And that's who I created. No, I have a feeling most people aren't going to know about him. That's overpriced. You're paying too much for him. Don't go ahead and pay for Franco. I get he's in Coors. If you want Coors, take Arenado. If you want dongs, take Josh Donaldson tonight.
Yep, absolutely. For me, it's still Donaldson, but I like the spot there for Arenado at home against Aaron Harang, fly ball pitcher. Definitely a good spot. Once again, going Brandon Crawford at shortstop. He's $4,000, a little bit expensive, but I got some cheaper bats in my outfield, so I don't mind paying a little bit for a pitcher who's hitting the ball really, really well right now. And he gets a matchup tonight with Carlos Frias, who has been very tough on righties, not particularly great against lefties, so still going to target that matchup there.
Yeah, no. My shortstop tonight is Zachary Cozart. You like Votto. I like Cozart. I think Cozart's in a great spot, batting 300 on the season, 883 OPS. This is obviously dependent on where he's hitting in the order, but a spray hitter in Kaufman Park, hopefully that will lead to some nice dividends. Also, Todd Frazier, Joey Votto batting behind him. Good price tag. Shortstop stinks tonight. Let me say that again. Shortstop stinks tonight. If I can say it once more, shortstop is terrible tonight.
Yeah.
The one crazy part, Brandon Crawford's 4K. You will never see Troy Tulowitzki at 4.7K in Coors the rest of the season. I want to pull the trigger so bad. So bad, but I can't do it until he proves that his quad is okay. He actually wants to play in Coors, and I just can't do it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Until I see something, can't pull the trigger there. But once again, I will be pulling the trigger on Carlos Gonzalez, 4.5K. Getting myself another piece of that Coors action, and I think he's got a fair price for what he's been doing recently, and I don't mind paying up for him a little bit tonight.
No, pay up for him. Do you want me to say, take me home tonight? Carlos Gonzalez, top outfielder of the night. I mean, not top. Bryce Harper, let's be honest. Bryce Harper is the top player in baseball as of right now. I'll argue it with anyone. Yeah, Mike Trout's best hitter in baseball. Okay, well, Bryce Harper is the best hitter right this season. Argue with me. I don't think there's a better.
It's close right now. No one's gonna argue that. They can't. If they do, find them. Send them my way.
Dude, I've heard it. People are saying it. But you know what? Everyone talked prior to this season that Bryce Harper, this was his breakout season. All the sabermetric guys, all the advanced statistics guys said, listen, Bryce Harper breakout season this season. the Nationals as a whole. You're telling me Bryce Harper's quote-unquote breakout seasons just has started with a 338 batting average, 14 home runs, 37 ribbies. He's the best hitter in baseball right now. He's the best hitter night in, night out. He is your top option in the outfield. If you can fit him, go ahead. Fit him. If you cannot, play Carlos Gonzalez, who's probably the best point per dollar outfielder. Although, if if Bryce Harper goes for 37 fantasy points, it doesn't matter how many other points someone else scores. No one's got that upside as he does.
No, nobody. But speaking of guys with nice floor,
hey, real question, real quick. Bryce Harper continues this tear. What do we see him at by All-Star break price-wise in hitters' parks? Does he go over 6? Like 6.8?
I mean, FanDuel's got him at 6.2 today, so easily. I mean, we saw Tulo earlier this season at 6 at home. I mean, just imagine Bryce Harper in Coors now. 6.5? I mean, it's sky's the limit for him in so many ways. It's gonna be brutal to get him into your lineups later this year.
And Bryce, if you're watching this, I'm going to see you in Camden in mid-July. It's a Saturday game. Do me a favor, shout me out from the podcast in the cafe. Hit a home run and sign cafe on it. Be much appreciated.
Yeah, let me know where you're gonna crush that ball to, and I'll buy those seats. Elsewhere in the outfield, I'm going with another guy that I love playing in cash games, Kevin Kiermaier. Assuming that he's leading off, got a nice matchup tonight against Mike Foltynewicz. And Kiermaier's a guy who, he doesn't have a ton of power, but he gets on base, he scores runs, and if he's batting atop this lineup, especially DK, you get no negatives, so he gets 4 at-bats, maybe he gets 5 if they're scoring some runs. You got to like that type of floor for a guy like Kevin Kiermaier.
Yeah, I love that floor for a type of guy like Kevin Kiermaier, but I also love hooking my D. Gordon with Christian Yelich, who's like one of my favorite players to play. Is the dude 21 yet? Is he even 21 yet?
Rebel Yelich? I don't know. He's young.
Oh, my God. Brother man is very young. I love taking Christian Yelich at home. He's like one of my favorite hitters, actually. I just like the way he plays baseball. He started the season off really slow. I have a hunch he was dealing with some injuries that, I know he had a back injury, but I think it was a little bit worse than people led on to believe, mainly because of his age. But you know what? We all get sore backs once in a while. Sore backs, they go, and then his stats, he's not a 179 hitter. He just isn't. So I like the discount. Christian Yelich, 4K. Thank you. Come again.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and throw out my last guy, and he's cheap, as you would expect with some other big bats in my lap. Billy Burns, assuming he's leading off. He got the day off yesterday. Coco Crisp is just awful at this point. He's hurting the team. I don't know why he continues to bat first. The A's know better than this. Billy Burns was getting on base. Get this man back in the lineup and watch him get on base and score runs, because that's what he does.
Yeah, Billy Burns, man. I don't know why I'm on this whole kick of looking at seeing these photos and thinking funny things, but there's a news reporter on CNN that's like doppelganger for Billy Burns. I'll have to get that and I'll tweet it out. But, my outfielder's also cheap. He's one of my favorite players in baseball, believe it or not. You're going to be like, what? He's one of your favorite players in baseball. Yeah, my first GPP win ever was in MLB was last year. He was at home versus the Oakland Athletics, and Mr. Brock Holt went off. Love Brock Holt. The guy always seems to do well for me when I need it. I love Boston bats tonight. I hope he's batting a little bit higher up in the order. He's struggling to start. He struggled to start this season. I like Brock Holt tonight. 3.1K gives you speed. Does have some pop. Has shown he can go long. But most importantly, he gets on base, and I love Texas as a whole. So I think they're going to be batting around more than once.
Absolutely. All right. With that being said, find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. I'm at Big Italy 42. He's at Space Jam 23 DFS, and check out all of our content for tonight's action at dailyfantasycafe.com.